Welcome to WRPB and WRPB Studios. How many times have you guys heard me say, use a professional? Well, sometimes using a professional is difficult because you can't find a professional. And you can't go, I hate to say it this way, strictly on Google or Yelp ratings, because there's ways to fix that, ways to change it. For many, 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 many years, probably longer than I've been alive, there's been a thing called the Better Business Bureau. And that is the home for where you really could go to kind of learn a little bit more about the people that you're going to use. Before Yelp, before Google, before Angie's List, Better Business was around. And with me is Cynthia Lavin, and you're with the Better Business Bureau of
Southeast Florida
Okay.
and the Caribbean.
Okay.
So we have the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico.
And that's a pretty big area to cover.
Absolutely.
Okay, so static questions that I always ask. How long are you doing it?
I have been with the Better Business Bureau almost 6 years now. It's going to be in the summer.
Okay, very cool. Why? Why'd you go there?
Well, I love helping people,
Uh-huh.
and I like work that is meaningful.
Right.
Being in the communications industry, there's a lot of work with social media, marketing, brands, influencers, always chasing the next best thing. But I like the mission that the Better Business Bureau has. And my mother was a small business owner
Oh, how cool.
who was an accredited business at one point in time. And I remember I grew up seeing the logo of the BBB.
Right.
And people will always take that logo and say, oh, okay, I know you're a reputable business. So
Right.
that really inspired me to do work here. And we have a great team that really cares about the businesses and the consumers as well.
Do you think since you've been started to today, do you think there's been changes in the industry, in your industry?
Absolutely. There's definitely been changes. Social media just continues to grow, and you have to really navigate that. And there's a lot of scams going on because of digitalization and because scammers just continue to be smart and outsmart the consumer. So there's
'Cause they're
definitely been
young.
changes. Yeah, they're young. They're young,
Right.
and they create their own apps and they develop programs to be able to scam people. So definitely I've seen some change. The scams only get more elaborate. Now we have crypto to worry about.
That's true.
So that's something that we are constantly fighting out in the community.
Well, you've already answered the next question, which would be, do you see change in the future? Obviously, because technology is just one of those things that's going to constantly change and evolve. And we have to evolve with it. You know, I used to remember my dad would always want to get the Sunday paper, and the Sunday paper was like this thick. And now, the Sunday paper is like this thick. So, it's like everything has to be so careful that it doesn't get swallowed up within an industry of technology. Like, to me, the newspapers did it to themselves because they did it when the real estate market bubble burst. And they said, front page with real estate stuff, all negative. The real estate industry's ads kept newspapers going for years. So they just didn't get it, and then you had digital media to it. Better Business Bureau, did they evolve into the digital world?
The BBB did evolve into the digital world. We constantly are updating our site, trying to make it more user-friendly. We have an equal option where consumers can go in there and say, I need this type of job done, and provide as much information as possible. They can even provide pictures if it's, I don't know, if you need a door fixed or you need to tear down a wall, and they can submit that quote, and they will have 3 businesses contact them, either email, text message, or phone call, however they choose, and say, hey, I can do this work for you, and it's up to the consumer to pick who they want to go with.
Okay, so honestly, I've been around forever. I didn't even know that you have that option. Okay, and you hear that option on other platforms, okay, that have been around for a year, 2 years, 5 years. How long has Better Business Bureau been around?
Since 1912.
I wasn't here when it started. Sometimes I feel it, but I wasn't here when it started. So, what's the value of Better Business Bureau to a business, small or large or whatever?
Well, being accredited, what the value that it brings is that credibility. consumers know that if they run into an issue with an accredited business, it's going to get resolved because accredited businesses are bound by our standards to resolve an issue, to respond to an issue, and really arrive to a good solution that favors both parties. So really that's the credibility. And businesses go through a rigorous process. When they get accredited, we check the contracts, the financials, we look at who the principals are, the type of advertising. Is it doing false claims? So we work with businesses to fix that. If there's something there that's not working, that perhaps you're going to run into an issue with accreditation, we work with businesses to improve that, to be better businesses. And then they get to be a part of our platform with an accredited business seal. Now, we don't only keep listings of accredited businesses.
I was just going to ask you that.
So we keep listings of businesses throughout our entire service area. The only difference is that when you work with an accredited business, you know that they went through our compliance department.
You know, technology, and I hate to keep going back to it, but I live in a world of technology, really makes it interesting to find the information that you can find, okay? And it used to be, I guess, if someone had a problem with a business, they used to have to write a letter to the Department of Consumer Affairs, and it would take months and months and months. If someone has a problem with an accredited business, I guess they email you?
They go to our website, bbb.org, and they can file a complaint against the business. Okay. That complaint gets sent to the business, and the business has a certain amount of time to reply to the complaint and find a solution. And we are the middleman. We help the business and the consumer arrive to a good resolution. So there can be a back and forth of what the consumer wants and what the business wants to provide. Ultimately, if there is not a resolution within these exchanges of correspondence, the business can they can go to arbitration. And we have someone there that helps the consumer and helps the business navigate that process. But rarely businesses go to arbitration. Nowadays, really businesses, ethical businesses, good businesses understand what it is that they need to do to resolve matters with their consumers.
Okay, so here, as a small business, here's what I'm thinking. Mary's Bagels comes in, she has a bad time. So she goes on the website and files a complaint. Does that complaint stay private until it's resolved?
So the complaint stays private until it's resolved or answered. Not all complaints end up being resolved. Sometimes no matter what the business does, or if a consumer could be very difficult, they just don't arrive at a resolution, and after it times out, and they just don't want to accept each other, we just report it. Now, complaints are reportable up to 3 years. So if you go and search a company, you'll see the last 3 years of complaints, but that is correct. We don't post it on our website until we have either a resolution or it's just closed out.
Okay, so Mary's Bagels comes here and let's say she complains. If she brings bagels, there's absolutely no reason for her to complain, but let's just say she does. And the complaint goes back and forth, trying to find a resolution. Well, now Joe wants to find out about WRPB, and he goes to the Better Business Bureau. Will he see that complaint from Mary, even though it's not resolved?
He will only see it after the complaint is closed out, and
okay,
we decide to post it and say, okay, there was no resolution here. There's no more answers from the consumer, no more answers from the business. We decide to close it out.
So, and what I was trying to get at for businesses is that so many things get posted, and I would say, and I could be wrong, the majority of them get resolved. So there's no reason for you to tell Fred, who came on to find out about WRPB, for argument's sake, that Mary's Bagels complained, because Mary's Bagels and WRPB solved the dispute, and happily they went their way, and they brought in the bagels that they were supposed to bring in payment for the video. Okay, no one has to see that if I resolved it with Mary's.
Respectfully, I have to disagree,
Okay.
because it shows that the business is willing to work with the consumer. So really, it shows how the business handles itself. the relationship. So if I am searching a business and I see, okay, this person complained about this particular product, maybe there's a pattern of an issue with a product, but I see that the business is always willing to respond, to provide some sort of satisfaction, say, okay, I kind of take it as a review, even though they're different and people are not allowed to submit a bad review and a complaint. They have to pick one. But I see how the business handles itself and if they do care about the issues that the consumers raise. And that's why it's only reportable for 3 years, because after 3 years, it ages out in the system.
You know, what's interesting you say that, because it then takes me down a different path. I've reviewed tons of restaurants. And the philosophy of restaurants is the restaurant can have the best food in the world, but if the service is bad, people will not go back. The restaurant can have good food and the service is excellent, and the people will constantly come back. So really, the scenario there is we're only human and things go wrong. So you go and you order a lobster at a restaurant and it's a little rubbery. And you tell the person it's a little rubbery. Now the ball's in their court. So if it's a good restaurant, they'll stand up for it, go get you another, ask you if you want another lobster, and get you another lobster. So you're right. It's the way people handle things that people look at. Because if that happened to me and I ended up getting another lobster and it was good, I would go back. Okay. Most people that complain really just want to know that you care.
Correct.
Okay. You know, we live in Florida and we have a lot of old people like me. And a lot of them go in restaurants and complain. Okay. But the scenario is, it's not always about that you have to give them a free meal. You just need to do something to show them that you care. And I guess it's the same when someone makes a complaint to you, then you touch base with the business and you say, hey, this one made this complaint. What happened and how can we make it better?
Yeah, consumers want to be heard
Right.
and acknowledged.
Right. Part of the problem with technology today is that Mary's son is a videographer and I'm a videographer. We live in the same town. I have a studio. She should do anything to make sure that her son gets the jobs. So there's a lot of complaints that are not valid. How do we figure out what's valid and what's not valid?
Well, so when we receive a complaint and we send that to the business and the business says, I have never had any interaction with this person, they're submitting a false claim, we go back to the consumer and say, do you have receipts supporting documents of what you're claiming? And if they don't, ultimately we just dismiss that as not applicable. So that's why we are the middle person, always trying to, because there's consumers out there that perhaps can be very difficult and then they just want to create a bad reputation for a business. Unfortunately, it's not the majority of the case, but it does happen.
Right.
So we are there to navigate through that and find out, okay, who's telling the truth and who is doing what. We are one of the only platforms whose reviews are actually checked by a person before they go up.
Oh, okay.
So we make sure that the IP address is not the same IP address for 5 positive reviews, because then you have one person leaving
Right.
different kinds of reviews. So before anything, and also we have the consumer say, okay, or let's verify this review. We're going to send you an email and you have to make sure that everything you posted is accurate and correct. And after our team looks at it, then it goes up.
Okay, so I don't know if you'll have this answer, but in your district that you handle, how many businesses are with you? Do you know?
Over 200,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you're a busy lady.
Yeah.
That's like a lot to deal with, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm going to guess that if you have 200,000 businesses, I'm going to guess that 199,990 have no issues and they just go along and are part of an organization just...
Well, we process just our bureau 50,000 complaints a year.
Okay.
So that should more or less tell you we have some industries that are more problematic than others.
Right.
Moving industry.
You think?
moving industry is the number one.
Used car? How about used cars?
Used cars. So
We talk about that here, and I talk about my experiences in moves that I've done, because I'm blessed to have found moving companies that are excellent.
there's some great ones.
Okay, and the philosophy is always the few ruin it for the many, in most cases. You know, so I kind of get it, but it's like if something good happens to me, I have a platform to tell everybody, so I'm really kind of lucky that way. What I have learned over the years, and I'm doing this 26 years, when I first started, if I went to a restaurant and the food was bad, I'd give them my card and say, you need to listen to my show tomorrow. Like a rookie cop would do. It was a power thing. Today, if it's bad, I don't talk about it. It's just, my view is no. If I go review a play and I say the curtains were the perfect color, they know that I really didn't enjoy the play. I don't need to talk about the negatives, okay? People know from watching me for all these years how I see things and how I feel about plays. I can't, look, I think critics are crazy, because until you get up on stage,
Absolutely.
sing, dance, act, and be where you need to be, don't talk about anybody else. I went to a play about Mamas and Papas, I believe it was, the band, way before your time. And in it, the phone rings, and the actor grabs the phone, and the phones back then had cords, these things, just say it. And the phone falls off the counter. Well, the critic banned, but he spoke bad about the play because of that. Now, I can tell you growing up, I've seen the phone come off the wall by accident. I've seen the phone come off the counter by accident. My cell phone drops a million times. So I don't understand why you would do that. But, you know, I think that before you make a complaint, you have to be able to stand on the other side of the fence as a business owner, okay, or a worker, and see how you would feel in that scenario. That's so important. And my other philosophy is, if I go and I get bad, something wrong happens at a restaurant, and I tell the manager, it's not because I want anything, but if I don't tell somebody, it never gets fixed.
Correct.
And then other people are going to have the complaint, and eventually the business will have to close. And as a small business and entrepreneur, I don't want to see any business close. I want to see them stay open and flourish. I was blessed. I was very lucky. But I like to see other people succeed. We're running at the top of our time. How do people contact you? You have a website?
Yes, so people can go to bbb.org/SEFL, or they can send us an email at info@bbbsefl.org.
Look, I have WRPB. It took years to figure those out. Everybody, always use a professional. And if you're not sure, just go to bbb.org and try to figure out who's going to be the best for you and see where they can help you. Cynthia, I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody have a great day, and we'll be right back.